What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to Members Only. Now tonight, we're going back to DC for a minute, and we're covering Bighead Gary. Now, this is not his life story. I'm gonna just cover what I know, and anything I miss, make sure you hit the comments. Some stuff you heard, some stuff you didn't. Now let's get into it. Now, Bighead Gary, or Little Gary, is from Trinidad. Now, that's a vicious area in DC where they don't play, especially with outsiders. Now, I don't know what's it like now, but back then it was vicious. Now, you have names like MJ and the Kyle brothers that came from that area. If you want to know a little bit more about them names, just hit the playlist. You'll find it somewhere. Now, he began to move like a stick-up kid early on. He robbed a lot of guys and burnt a lot of bridges. The one thing Gary and Poe have in common is that both men allegedly took shells from Jawbreaker. You ever heard of the saying, anyone that is an enemy of my enemy is a friend? Well, it was sort of like that. Gary got hit up by Jawbreaker, and he took some time to recover in the hospital. But when Gary left the hospital, his money was low. He had a baby mom, a child, and a bunch of other chicks he was supporting. So the fastest way to get money is to take from other people. When you're broke, that's when you're the most dangerous. You ever took a crazy loss and they have you wide awake at 4 a.m. just thinking about how you're going to get to that next check? In his situation, he thought about who he could rob and get away with. Now, don't get me wrong, Gary was a hustler. He was following in his brother's footsteps. Now, we all know his brother was gunned down. After that happened, Frey allegedly looked out for Gary to keep things cool. Some say Gary blew up right after his brother passed. Gary was hustling, and it got to a point where his paper was more than straight. He did business with Alpo. They got close, and Gary kind of let his guard down dealing with him. Now, Gary would rent limos to transport bricks from New York to DC. That was his thing. That's just how he moved. Now, in the game, there's ups and downs. You could be up one day, then down tomorrow. He stacked his bread. He would be sitting on a couple mil. Then he would start hanging with Alpo, and Alpo showed him how to spend some of that money. Now, and all he wanted was this credit and respect. He didn't like the fact that Alpo was calling the shots, and didn't like that he didn't receive much credit from the work he put in. He had a Napoleon complex. Little dude like 5'2", he'll get you right out of here in a heartbeat though. Dealing with him, you had to handle him with care. You didn't want to offend him. Sort of like Tommy from Goodfellas. He was small, but you didn't want to piss him off. He had a short fuse. It didn't take much to have him reach for that gun. Now, Gary had a main chick that was the mother of his child. He had a couple of side chicks, and he's been caught up a couple of times. And this girl would get her lick back, but she started messing with someone close in them circles that, Gary did business with. She would let it be known. Stepping out is one thing, but doing it with someone he knows is a no-no. And ego comes into play. And females are the choosers, so of all men in this world, choosing someone I don't know shouldn't be too much to ask for. Now, Gary wasn't playing that. I think he should have just left his chick if he couldn't control his woman. But I understand when you love someone, it's not that easy to let go. But it also takes a man to understand what's not good for him. Gary was more upset with Andre Johnson because Andre knew that was his girl. Now, with that being said, that's a sign of disrespect, and Gary wanted to take him out for even playing with him like that. Alpo was the mediator because he was getting money with Andre. He said Andre was spending $400,000 a month with him. Plus, Alpo said he was hitting Andre's girl, so everybody was hitting everybody's girl. And Andre knew about it too, he just kept it playing. But Andre would stop messing with Gary's girl after Gary came to him as a man. But she was in love. She started telling lies like they were still messing around. Now, if he was still doing it, I don't think he would have been comfortable doing business with Alpo while Gary was around. Otherwise, he didn't respect him at all. Now, when Andre met up with Poe, he didn't make it back, unfortunately. That was Andre's last moment on Earth. I don't know who pulled the trigger because Alpo and Gary was pitting it on each other. That's when Gary fell back from Alpo. They threw each other under the bus. I have a feeling Gary didn't do it because Alpo is the type to commit a homie and not claim his right. Now, I heard MJ wanted to get at Wayne for some reason, and he reached out to Gary, but Gary wasn't with it. So he got to Wayne before Gary would and told him that Gary was trying to set Alpo up. See, MJ was a snake. Wayne even said it himself. He even lied on Wayne for the Frey hit, telling people at the funeral that it was Wayne. But Wayne would tell Alpo. Now, that's just what I heard. Hopefully someone will come along and clear that up. Gary eventually had to go. He knew so much about Alpo. Alpo said himself that Gary knew where he laid his head at. He knew where some of his stash spots were. And last, he didn't say this, but most definitely Gary knew the real reason behind the Rich Porter hit. He had too much on Alpo. Gary ran his mouth. He ran his mouth and put the Andre hit on Alpo. Now, Alpo did say that Gary called his wife the B word, so that was one of the other reasons. Now, Alpo broke down the Bighead Gary hit. We all heard it. He said that Gary called him and said that he had to drop on Jawbreaker. I think it was the other way around. Like, I think it was a kidnapping. Poe said when Gary called him, Poe was already in the van with a couple of his hitters. But I think he was the one that called Gary about spotting Jawbreaker. If Gary knew where Jawbreaker was, then why was they riding around so long? That caused Gary to fall asleep. But that would be little Gary's last day on Earth. Now, you live by the gun, you die by the gun. He played a dirty game. He spent his time getting shot at, ducking bullets, then ended up getting finished by a friend. A friend that probably took his stash. He didn't even look out for that man's kids, I bet. Towards the end, Gary was paranoid. He felt like something was coming. His gut was telling him something. He saw certain signs. The signs was in his face. Energy don't lie, people. Y'all better watch out. Y'all better start being careful. But that's it for the night. Don't forget to turn on the notifications on this channel so y'all don't miss out on the new content. Hit me up in the comments, get the likes up, show love. I'm out.